Good morning, everybody. So, I'm quite happy to be here with a very emphasis panel. It's not often that we get to hear from SD professors and of course Dr. Unnikrishnan, who is leading the technology initiatives for the state in many different ways. So, before we start the conversation, there are some very interesting data points that are available. A couple of centuries ago, almost 75% of the jobs were agriculture related. Today, only 5% of the people work in agriculture related fields. In every 5 years, about 20 to 25% of the jobs that are existing disappears. So which means that in about 25 years, so when a student starts the journey, by the time they graduate, about 3/4 of the jobs don't exist anymore. We also know that with the intervention of artificial intelligence, about 40 to 50% of the jobs can disappear at any given point of time. So in all these changing worlds, how do you look at STEM as the core? Because in the old days, I remember when I started my engineering, my architectural counterparts has to have the best capabilities in drawing. Whereas today, you have tools that help you to do that. Right? So how do you see some of these evolve? So Professor Largo, I'd like to hear from you the change in this field and how it's evolving as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you all. Let me just first congratulate this distinguished audience on occasion of the Republic Day. So I hope that you will have a great day. Enjoy the day. Okay, the question is really very important. As Tony says, nowadays everything is changing. Technology is more and more important, and I will give just my view as Vice Chancellor of a university. A university generally oriented is we are not specialized in just one particular field. We teach science, medical science, humanities, engineering, social science. So we are a university of more or less 30,000 people, is our community, and we have specialists in every area. However, we are very strong in engineering, in technological and science. But at the same time, I think, and it's my feeling, that humanities are also very important. Of course, we have, I am as the responsible of a university, I have a lot of pressure from institutions, companies, and even press and social media about we need. They always tell me we need more engineers. The companies tell me, give me more engineers. We need engineers. That's true, and we do need a lot of technological people, engineers. But at the same time, we must focus on a general perspective. I feel that as an institution and a university, we not only for professionals, we also for persons. The students come to our universities to become good professionals, but also to develop, to enrich as persons. So we have a responsibility not just to give them technological abilities and a good education for becoming good professionals, but also to become citizens with all the knowledge. So my feeling is that humanities are very important. So we must focus also in the arts, the A in STEM. So We need professionals, but with that capability, with that view, with that sensibility for get involved and try to get an advanced society, but also a most responsible, inclusive, democratic, and fair society. So that's my view for the moment.
Thank you, Professor. Quite interesting. We started the journey as where we only focused on the technology and science. Now we are saying that with the advent of newer capabilities, we need to incorporate humanities and arts into our thinking. So STEM moves into STEAM. And how do you take that further? So Professor Castro, what's your perspective? Beyond the regular arts, beyond the liberal arts, do you also see a role for other aspects that can incorporate into technology as a whole?
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here as well. I would like to, from this perspective of STEM, that is integrating arts, it is for sure that STEM does not fit what the society needs. So there is a need, an urgent need to include arts in the STEM education of our students. I'm very happy to see here a lot of students. We come from a university in Spain, and what I would like to add to this humanities perspective is the importance of transdisciplinary knowledge. Knowledge needs to be in the boundaries of knowledge, in the sense of moving from one discipline to another, so introducing humanities adds this other dimension. But also another idea I would like to highlight here is the importance of internationalization, because internationalization gives us another perspective. As Pro-Chancellor for Internationalization, we are trying at the university to put our students in this reach of knowledge, and internationalization provides this perspective, because we are talking about another way of educating our students, giving them or providing them the bridge to tolerance, to respect, and also to have a different perspective in knowledge. And this is what STEM is as well. So there is an overlap between STEM, introducing arts and humanities into this science and technology education, with internationalization, which also has this other perspective of putting cultures together and developing international competences, global perspectives, and this global citizenship mindset, which is also necessary for this introduction of arts in STEM.
Thank you, Professor. Again, quite interesting, right? The world has become much smaller. We all interact very closely with each other. Today, companies, we have people working in different parts of the world creating the same product as a team. So the concept of internationalization definitely is also an important angle to think about. Dr. Unnikrishnan, is there a risk if we do not apply arts into STEM, or even thinking broadly as a society, internationalization, etc.? Is there a challenge that we are creating cookie cutter modes of people who are just technologists but not necessarily looking into the broader environment? What's your take on this?
See, my take on this is basically that the dichotomy that has been created between STEM and arts itself is meaningless. Basically, I look at it as a sort of manifestation of commodification of knowledge, which has created the necessity of coming up with a design like STEM and arts. This is not really unnatural. It doesn't look at the social, cultural, and historical context of education as a process, how it has evolved. It is trying to completely disconnect the education from the social framework. As we have been indicated, education is driven by social needs, and we have to look at it from a social context, which will define whether it is contextual, whether it is local, and what is education for. Education is basically, I understand, is for creating the skills that are necessary for societal requirement of generating the capabilities for production. There is no necessity for a dichotomy between science, technology, and arts at all. It comes as a holistic, and we cannot in disconnection. We have to look at interrelations of discipline and look at problem solving. Now what the world globally as contextually requires is the capability for real life, contextual, inclusive problem solving. And this is the capability, as Professor has indicated. What we want to create is not really symbolic, but humans who can solve the problems of humanity, of the community at large, and address these issues. So I basically negate the dichotomy of STEM and art itself, and what is required for the society which has been.
Thank you, Dr. Unnikrishnan. Quite passionate. I can see that. Fully agree with that. I think for us at the end of the day, we cannot have a distinction between STEM and arts on two sides of where we are. Let me tell you a story. One of my previous jobs, I was the CIO for Nissan Motors out of Japan. CIO is the guy who handles all the technology, software development, etc. And as you know, in automotive today, most of the development is around autonomous vehicles. And before we were designing autonomous vehicles, we wanted to do a survey to see, because now your machine is self-learning. The machine is going to act. Car is going to think for itself. In the old days, or in today's world, we drive the car, and when there is a crisis or a last-minute change, our reflexes take over, and we make that adaptation. Whereas in autonomous driving, the car has to make that decision. Now remember, like you said, not everybody in the world thinks the same way about every scenario. And I'm sure you all heard about the famous trolley problem, right? Where you have the trolley and you pull the lever, one person dies on this side or 4 people die on the other side. So we created a very similar scenario, and we tested it in 3 markets. Japan being our home market, France being our biggest partner market in Europe, and US, because that is where we sell most of our cars and make the most of the profit. And we created a variant of the trolley problem. And we said that it's an autonomous car. So in the car there's a passenger who is of course the owner of the car, or the customer of our automotive. You have an obstacle on the road. If you hit the obstacle, the passenger would die. If you swerve to the left, there's an old lady, she would die. If you swerve to the right, there's a child on the road, the child would die. Now remember, when you are driving, your reflexes take over. In many cases, you don't even think what you're going to do, right? You do something at that point of time based on all the inputs you have. But now, the car has to make that choice. Now, how will the car decide? Is it the same answer? Because they're making one software for a car that is sold across the globe. Now, interestingly, the survey came back. Guess what? The American said, well, you only have relationship with your customer. So at any cost, you have to protect the customer, right? We don't really care about the other two. Protect the customer, A. Also, eventually, your liability is towards your customer, and the relationship is with the customer. Fine, great, so we go to France. The French says, at any cost, you have to protect the baby. The baby is the future. That is the promise. And we come to Japan, and Japanese says, you have to protect the old lady, because she has served the society. Now it is our job to protect the old lady, right? You see how the thinking changed. So when you really think about the future, when you think about science and technology as purely as technologists, you cannot solve these kind of problems. Now you have to have the machines think like humans. So in our design thinking sessions then, we actually had psychologists, and we also had liberal arts students that we brought in who taught coding, because nowadays coding is also easy, because you need to be engineering from India. That brings me to the next question, again, on the role of education in the STEAM world. Because today, unlike before, anybody can learn anything if you really want to, right? Most of online courses are there. Even if you want to do coding, you have low code, no code kind of capabilities. So you really don't need be an engineer, a computer scientist to create technology if you really look at the STEM side of it. If you're on the art side of it, you have two issues here. Right? One, you conceptualize the art. Two, you create the art. Now, I can tell you I can conceptualize, but I can never draw. But with today's tools, you can actually create your own art because those tools, the technology tools help us, right? So how do you see this? Where on one front, as technologists, I really don't need to be a pure technologist, but I can be thinking like an artist. On the art side, I don't have to think like an artist. I can use my technologies to come down, right? So how do you see some of this evolving? How do you see the future of education, the future of jobs, etc. like that?
Well, that's a very good question. First of all, I'm happy not to decide between the old lady, the baby, and the driver. That's a difficult question. Anyway, the world now is facing extraordinary problems, and we have climate change, economy problems, globalization. I think that we must prepare, as you say, Tony, the people, the students for the future with a basic ground in order to be able to face these challenges. I don't know if I may put an example, just a naive example. Imagine that you have the best engineers and they build the best ship, the best boat, the Titanic. So, and you have a great and extraordinary machine, the best people on board, but someone has to tell them, where are you going? You are facing an iceberg. You are facing an iceberg, so be careful. If you don't have people knowing philosophy, history, humanities, probably the Titanic will repeat the history and they will finally find the iceberg. So now this is an analogy, but what I want to say is that I'm a science. I'm from science. I'm computational chemist. I'm not suspicious about that, but during my whole life, always history, social science, geography has accompanied me. So I am very fond of humanities because that gives you a perspective. And now I'm responsible of a university. I feel that I need this perspective, this way of thinking to manage so many people. You cannot manage numbers, objectives. You can rationalize many things, but you have to be sensible with what people are looking for. So that's my view, and I try to do every day what I think is better for my university, but thinking always in every person, every individual. And that's my way of focusing on that.
Thank you, Professor. So then, basically what we hear from you is that you want your students to apply both the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain equally well and start thinking about what they do more in a holistic manner rather than just looking at it from a narrow perspective, right? I'm quite interested. So Professor, what's your take on the future? How do you see some of this evolving? And how do you prepare yourself and your students and maybe the rest of the academia to get to that stage?
Yeah, it's for sure that we are now in a moment that we have to redefine education. And this is very important. How do we redefine these educational perspectives? I think first by including collaborative learning, this kind of approaches in which students work together in projects collaboratively, and also experiential learning. So it's more about putting the fields into contact, this transdisciplinary approach that I was mentioning before. So if we put students in a situation that they can connect fields, that they can work together with others, there is interaction. And this interaction creates new knowledge. So we are now in a sphere in which knowledge is dynamic. It's not a fixed knowledge, as we had the feeling before, but it's more dynamic. So transdisciplinary with approaches as collaborative approaches, project approaches, etc., but also internationalization. How? Internationalizing the curriculum, for example, including aspects in the curriculum, for example, an intercultural dimension in the curriculum is important, to have a different perspective, to change mentalities, to have a different mindset, to be more open, to be more resilient, to be more dynamic. So in that sense, internationalization of the curriculum is important. And also internationalization at home. We don't want just to focus on mobility, but also on other activities that we can do at the universities to create an international mindset. So this is my two perspectives.
Thank you. Quite interesting about the experiential learning and the adaptiveness of it. Dr. Unnikrishnan, I want to ask a question probably more closer to home, because I see a lot of students here. How do you see Kerala evolving in this space? Because of course we both studied at CEP, and we used to joke that the notes that we used to get from our professors were the ones that they had as students themselves, right? So, nothing really evolved. Teraja, Kurumi, these are the books that we studied, that probably our grandfathers also studied. So how do you see that adaptive learning, that experiential learning? How do you see Kerala system changing and adapting so that our students can be winners in the global scenario in that sense? That's part one. And part two, how do you see our teachers evolving, right? Because I really believe that a good education system can only be implemented if teachers are willing. Now today, with the strong hold of the unions here, etc., there is much resistance to change. So how do you see both of the angles? One on the student side, syllabus side, pedagogy, and then of course on the teachers and they're evolving.
See, the whole question is that when you said about Teraja and Bellani, the sort of engineering test, I also had the opportunity of reading about Althusser and Paulo Freire also. Those also excited me exactly the same way as Bellani and Teraja enthused me. So I had been trying to look at education from the context of society. The whole question of your car and the old man and the baby and the whole issue of simulation came because you are not looking at why the children, the old man, the old women, they were all in the streets and they don't have a car like the other guy who is driving is also a question. You are trying to reduce the question to the French queen when she saw the people on the streets and asking for bread. She was asking, why are they not asking for cakes? So that's the sort of question that you are looking at. You are trying to isolate the whole process of education from the society and talk about, because education has two dimensions. Number one, I said it is for creating the productive capabilities in the society, number one. Number two, it also creates a model model in relation to the ideological hegemony. And so there is always a question of looking at the ideological hegemony, of criticizing this, coming up with a critical pedagogy, and looking at how resistance could also be brought up from education. We all had been part of as students, we had been looking at critically about what teachers had been doing, how they become part of the state, and in doing that. And again, among the teachers also, there had been sections of the teachers who had been very emphatically looking at the power relations in the society, and then looking at how education as a process will look at it from both
creating the hegemony as well as opposing the hegemony. So there is no point, whether it is in the international context or in the local context, trying to isolate education from these issues. And unless we integrate that with the context and look at experience and drive the children to look at real life problem solving and then create the capabilities for that. No computer, no artificial intelligence, no drone, no blockchain is going to solve the real problems of the world. We have to solve whether it is climate change, whether it is the issue of, war, and continuing with the war, and ensuring that the humanity can continue to the next stage. There are a variety of issues which technology cannot solve. These have to be driven based on social needs. And I think the primacy is on social need, and what is required has to be decided based on social needs.
Thank you, Dr. Unnikrishnan. Now, coming back into AI, today with the capabilities in AI, there are many new tools that are evolving that can help professors as well as students in learning and in absorbing what they learn. Now, are there some good examples of some of those newer tools, technologies, capabilities that you use beyond the student-teacher interaction, right? So are there some best practices that you can share with us that you are aware of, or how this is evolving?
Okay, thank you. I will let this issue to Paloma maybe. I would like just to emphasize 2 points. First point, nowadays education has changed a lot. When I was a student a long time ago, I don't know how many years ago, everything was around the professor. We attended the lessons listening to the professor. Nowadays, in our universities, the student is the center. Is at the center of the education process. So everything is around the student, accompanying him in his or her development as person, as professional. So the student must be at the center of the education. And second question, I would like to introduce the issue of equality and equity. In my university, in our universities in Europe, there is a problem with STEM careers and technological careers. Few women follow these studies. Maybe 25% of our students in engineering are women. And that's a problem for the future. Technological professions are the best remunerated, the best salaries are in the technological field. So, and our social advance will need technology, and women must be involved in all that process. So I don't know in India, but I think that we must work to increase the number of women approaching these technological careers, these technological professions. So I think that that's very, very important. I would like to emphasize this couple of points. The students are the center of the education, and women, we need women to get involved in technology, in STEM careers.
Yeah, and thank you, Professor. And the interesting part is in Kerala, we really see women, girls being as interested in technology as men. So I studied in Trivandrum, the same school that we had. And today we see that almost 50% of the students attending are girls in these engineering colleges here. Although there are some branches girls prefer more than some other branches, but in general you see that there's a lot of that here. That's a good evolution here. Professor, again, your take on the tools and some of the newer age ways of learning and imparting learning.
Okay. Well, the use of different tools helps in education. So there are methodological tools that we use to improve our way of learning. But what I would like to highlight in this audience, that we have a lot of students, is that even we at the university, at the policy level, we try to include these approaches which are more social, with a more social impact, what is important is the engagement of students. So it's important to be engaged, to participate, to be involved, because the critical perspective, that is what we are assuming, what we want to develop, needs the engagement of everybody. So even if we use different tools, the implication is important.
Thank you. Dr. Unnikrishnan, I'd like to take that, and I think you were kind of alluding to that about that critical thinking aspect that Professor also alluded to right now. So how do you see that? Again, coming back from my experience, I studied my O-level and A-level abroad, which is 10th and plus 2, and I came back to Kerala and I did my engineering in CET. Now, when I studied outside India, we used to do an experiment. We used to tabulate. We would find outcomes, and that is what we used. Whereas when I came to CET, I was told that you have to study the procedure by heart. You have to write that in your record book, and then after you do all that, we will allow you to connect the wires here and there, right? So I was not really learning anything. I was just repeating what somebody wrote in a book, right? So to me, that critical thinking, I felt that was not really helping me to evolve, right? Rather, you are constraining me, right? So how do you see that evolving? Has it evolved? If not, how can we make sure that our kids get to be thinkers and problem solvers rather than memory machines?
See, basically this arises from a diverse of theory from practice. That is how the whole thing is emerging. Right from the period of Euclid, we have created systems of formalization where the whole process of it, for instance, what we learn as the sort of Pythagoras theorem, was something which was practiced by the masons in building the pyramids far before Pythagoras. And so that is how the whole process of knowledge itself has emerged from problem solving. Like, for instance, creating a sharp object and then using it for hunting, then trying to control fire, and then doing cooking. All these have been based on social needs and have emerged from practice. And now what has happened is that in doing the theorization, the whole thing has been diverse from practice, and it has been formalized and not looked at in the context of practice. That is precisely the issue. And I will also like to emphasize the issue of equality and sustainability, two very important values, which when we are talking about use of tools, I mean, quite often in a critical pedagogy framework, you look at also at the power relations, you look at theory and practice, you look at experiential education, all these components are brought in. But the moment you diverse from the critical theory, critical pedagogy framework and knowledge co-creation framework, and also a framework of linking practice and theory together, you get into a situation where you are looking at hypothetical situations and hypothetical models, and also ultimately you also enter into the interest of the capital, which would basically try to do exclusion also. You see, in the Kerala context, you try to ask the questions in the Kerala context. How can I look at transformation of the Kerala society, forgetting about what Iyengali did? In Kerala, the first struggle of the agriculture workers for 1.5 years, they struck work just for the right of the girl child, Panchami, to get an opportunity to learn for 1.5 years, the agriculture workers. So this is a unique aspect in world history which has not been heard of. Similarly, in this particular place, Calicut, we see Vagbhadanandan, who brought in the mechanism of workers come together to get a right for doing their work. And that was brought in as a right to work. So there are fundamental social questions. It's not a question of whether girls can take education. The whole question is that whether girls can practice their profession. What girls are required today is to be part of a family and to bring up a kid, and not to be participant in the whole production process. That is why Kerala is facing a situation of a large number, 1/3 of the Keralites are getting into IT jobs, and more than 50% of them are girls. And after 1 year or 2 years, they are brought to the family and they are put in charge of looking after the kid. And this is the whole issue of career break women that Kerala is facing. So these are social issues which have to be understood from a social framework, and to be resolved from a social framework, it has to go beyond conventional tools and educational frameworks, and there is a necessity for the society to look at the voices of the marginalized and the deprived, and to ensure that they are also getting the opportunity to education and also practicing their profession. The framework of STEM, the STEAM and all that is basically, I feel that it's depriving women. The number of women who are available in science and technology today, in artificial intelligence, in blockchain, and all these exciting areas of technology are much smaller than the number of men. These are all fundamental social issues which need to be addressed, and these have to be addressed within the social framework.
Very interesting. And I think, again, when we talk about the challenges, we normally only think about the challenges within the classroom and within the university, whereas now Dr. Unnikrishnan is telling us that we have to start thinking about the challenges in the broader context of the environment and the society as well, which is very interesting to me. Maybe let me build on that a little bit more, because so there is a societal challenges, of course, which is A, being able to learn, and B, being able to practice what you learn. Then on the second front, on the ways of learning, are our teachers capable in today's world, right? So if I look at Kerala, for example, we have multiple universities. Not every university is equal. Some university has more funds than some other university, right? So there's a budgetary issue in many cases. So where you have budgets, you could have better ways of learning, better professors, etc. But so there is an inequality that you would find. A. Then what you would also find is that about 40 to 60% of our today's teachers are probably not proficient in the latest ways of technologies themselves. So how do you adapt to that? How do you address these changes? Societal, economical, skill-wise, right? So it's quite a bit of that, right? So how do you see that? And especially from a third world country, aspiring to be a first world country like ours, where we want to break the barriers and move forward. Professor.
Well, that's a relative what you point. Actually, I feel that students are much more advanced in technology than our professors. What we are doing, well, we try to provide the tools for teachers to get involved in state-of-the-art tools for teaching and everything. We created last year at the university an artificial intelligence center with a holistic view, trying to contribute to society, trying to update our processes, but also for training our teachers and providing all the tools for them. But nowadays, the reality is that technology is growing and growing and growing. When ChatGPT arrived, that was an earthquake in our university, because I know all the bachelor thesis or master thesis, you have to be much more careful now when you work with a student because I think that we must not get confused by the technology and by the tools. We must use the tools, but always thinking, trying to provide the student all the clues for a good development as professional, as a person. So all these tools are incredible, are excellent, but we must try to keep the focus on the essential basis of the educational process.
Thank you, Professor. Professor, from your perspective, are there some insights that you would want to give to the audience here? And after one more round, we will go to question and answer, so we could get some questions. So, are there any takeaways that you would want? Any takeaways that you would want? Any summary? Any lessons that you would want us to learn from your experience, from a broader
perspective, including internationalization of education, etc. So, are there anything that you would like to share with us from your perspective?
Well, what I would suggest to everybody here in that are learning, or students, is to have an international experience. I think this is important, this is crucial. What we are seeing today is that we are in this transformative process. We are changing things. Teachers are agents of change. Students are also agents of change because they are engaged in this process. Having an international experience for me is very important in education because it opens perspectives. When you want to change things, you need to be, or to have specific competences to be more open-minded, but also curious, have curiosity, also not being afraid of problems, wanted to pass frontiers in knowledge and also in the relation with others. So it's very important to have an international experience. At the University of Valladolid, we are very keen to receive students from every part of the world, and we are very much interested in Indian students. We have a lot of connections. At our city, we have Casa de la India, and for us this is very important because it's the bridge we can have to India. So what I would like to say to the audience is that look at Spain, look at the University of Valladolid to have an international experience. You will feel at home because you have Casa de la India in the city, and also you will feel at home because in our university we are very much connected with India. We have 2 ICC chairs, a Hindi chair, an Indian study chair, and also we have studies related to India in our master and bachelor degree on international relationships. So this is what I would like to transmit to this audience, to look at the University of Valladolid and to have an international experience, which is very important to have this open mind and to be able to be in society as global citizens. This is what we want, to be global citizens.
Very good. We wish that, we hope that some of our students from here probably would be coming to your university. Dr. Unnikrishnan, just as we wrap up before the Q&A, for the different stakeholders that we have, I would like to hear 1 or 2 things that you would want them to think about. So first, of course, is the policymakers. Second is the university and the professors, the academia. Third, of course, is the students themselves. And fourth is the society, the parents, right? So how would you want to see an evolution, or is there a need for change? Is there a call to action? From your perspective, what would be that?
Oh, I had myself been in the suit of both the student as well as the teacher. And I had a fortunate situation of teaching in the College of Engineering Trivandrum for 1 or 2 years, and also at the Tata Institute of Social Science, where I'd been teaching in the social science, for the social science students. So I would say that, my request to teachers is that they have to realize, as she had been talking, that teachers are basically agents for change. The role of the teacher is basically to give wings to the dreams of the children, of the students, and to, allow them to fledge and fly on their own. So that is primarily the task of the teacher. And so, I had a situation where in Tata Institute, I had all of my students, it was 100% placement, and I was running the social enterprise program, and the students used to say and come back and said that, okay, the case studies that you had given me, every one of them would say that those were all useful for us at the interview. That was what they used to say. So I was extremely happy. The same situation was there when we had in engineering college also, because I had got an opportunity to work with the Freeman students. I also had a short experience where I worked in a polytechnic in Kurelmandam when I was the member of the state planning board, where I had been working with SC/ST students who were brought into the polytechnic stream, and they were sort of the most marginalized group. And in fact, we could, through a collective action, we could come up with the best result for that school also. So it's all a question of how do you connect yourself with the actual challenge, how to help the students and the education system to address the sort of social realities around is the most important thing. Now, as far as the policy makers in Kerala are concerned, there are two issues. Number one, there is a transformation which is happening in knowledge the world over. New tools are coming up, new methods are coming up. There is a huge confluence of life sciences, the cyber sciences, the cyber technologies, as well as the physical sciences and new materials. So there is a need for, and as she had been saying, the world is becoming more and more global, and it's much easier for you to actually connect with the rest of the world much more than it was possible a few decades ago. So there is a need for us to look at this global reality. And there is a need for trying to inculcate the best of the technologies, the best of the capabilities, the best of the opportunities. These have to be passed on to the students is a very important requirement that the teacher has to address and the society has to address. But there is no point in isolating the teacher and putting that as his own responsibility. No, it's a societal responsibility. We were very happy when the teachers of the past generation were part of the independence struggle. We felt that that was something which they should do. We were part of, whether it is in India or whether it is the Martin Luther King Jr. in United States or the Martin Luther King in the old ages. We have seen such models being emulated by teachers. And teachers addressing such social issues as important as the sort of passing on capability to the new generation, which is the primary task of the teacher as a part of the education system. So there is no question of divorcing the social context and then trying to fix the responsibility on the teacher. It's a sort of a collective responsibility of the society to transform the educational system, to help the students to acquire the capability, to become employable, to ensure that they can meaningfully participate in professions and also create the context. Just like I told about the girls, they are not having an opportunity to participate in the productive activities. So we have to have a mechanism whereby we provide them opportunities to participate in the production. So I would look at education as a cross-section of the society, and there is no point in trying to dissociate education from the society and trying to solve the issues of education in isolation from the issues of the society.
Thank you. We'll take some questions. So in summary, basically what we've learned is that STEM and arts have to coexist. You don't have to look at it separately. The education system evolving today has to adapt to the global needs and the societal needs, including sustainability, including the various divisions in the society as well. Thank you. So we'll take some questions. So I see one hand here.
Sir, the former chairman of National Curriculum and Education, Mr. Krishna Kumar, recently said a year ago, the children's mind around the globe are corrupted by the violence happening around the world. And he said the education has the potential to address this issue. We did a quick survey and found out that 30% of the available time of every child, every student, is influenced by the circumstances. By the circumstances he is in, the educational institutions, media, friends, etc. Now, I would like to know that what one or two important elements you incorporate in your educational system so that we are able to transform an ordinary student to a responsible citizen and a family person. I would like to know if you have got one or two elements that you incorporate in education. The question is to you two both. Thank you.
So what should we include now in the education of our students to be more global citizens? First, I think we should include situations or, let's say, projects in which the students can collaborate with other students in other parts of the world. For example, using technology, we can have what we call the exchanges with others, virtual exchanges, or putting together students to work collaboratively with students from other parts of the world. So that would be a way of having this experience. But also in terms of values, as you mentioned also, it's important to reflect. So adding a reflective dimension for students to reflect on what happened in this situation in which they have been interacting with others. So I would introduce an international collaboration using technology. I mean, it's not a need to do mobility, but also including a reflective approach to highlight the values which are linked to these interactions, values of respect, of tolerance, of open-minded. I don't know if it answers to your question.
We can take one more question.
Hi ma'am, hi sirs. I have two questions. First is, even when arts and literature is included in the STEM, in the curriculum of STEM, most of the times in technological institutes, literature is confined as a tool for a language tool, a tool to teach language or to help them with the soft skills or to face interviews. Like you said, it won't induce this critical thinking or a broader mentality. So your take on that? Like that's the policy thing where we can include literature in curriculum, but the results are different. And my second question is, with the current trend of reabsorbing industry professionals to academia, like NEP supports it, and PhD is no more a qualification. So will that help in the holistic production that you were talking about? Reabsorbing industry professionals to academia. Thank you.
For me? Is it for me or? Yeah. Okay. There are two issues. Number one, I mean, there is a disconnect between the industry and the academia for two reasons. Number one, because the academics are not really participating in the industry and they are not looking at real life issues is one issue. And the second one is that the industry is going in such a way that they are not in a position to involve in the process of education and to ensure that, I mean, there is no point in complaining that the people who are coming out of the educational system are not suited for the industry. There is a need for us to intervene and to transform the educational system collectively, and that is a whole concept that we are talking about in industry, in academia interaction and reinduction of industry professionals into training. So I myself went into Tata Institute as a reintroduction of a professional in government and planning as a teacher there, and there is an opportunity which is possible because of the autonomy which the Tata Institute had. So I think that there is a need for looking at such structures and such mechanisms. The UGC is now trying to build in a framework called the Professor of Practice also that has been brought in, and this is a unique opportunity for quite a lot of people to come from the industry and come. But now the whole question is that when they come back from the industry, is there an opportunity for them to really formulate the sort of their experience and to devise a mechanism by which the academic programs can be structured and sort of credits and things which are important for the academic process, whether they can be really influenced by the practice and whether it will ultimately lead to the students acquiring the sort of knowledge, the critical thinking and also the skills that is required for addressing the challenges around. That is the most important question. So if such frameworks are possible, which it is not individual oriented, but it's a question of a system oriented, mechanism to put in place and to devise systems which has to be done proactively with the students. I feel that I would go by Paulo Freire, who said that the student is not an empty bag and the teacher is not is a bag which is full. So it's a process whereby we have to look at the student, what is the need of the student, and try to devise something collectively. And I would look at the student and the teacher's activity as a sort of a collective, collaborative process of knowledge co-production. And we have to create a framework for that to ensure that the academy industry interaction becomes meaningful.
Take one more.
I
Take
have
one
a
more
question.
question. Yeah.
So I'm Sanju. So I have a question to Unnikrishnan sir and ma'am. You already mentioned that teachers are agents of change. So I felt a contradictory thing that the teachers, even though teachers, professors, in the case of teachers, these all teachers are hired on the basis of their academic scores. So I personally done my dissertation on how alternate education empowers students, how can integrate art into academics. So while we hiring a person on the basis of academic score, that actual talented, I personally believe that the history can be taught through theater, can be role plays or rhymes, things and all. So while we hiring, even we are in the government setting, it's hired through Kerala PSC. It's totally in the perspective of academic score. How it's contradictory, right? The actual talent pool, that candidate with actual teaching skills are not getting hired. So what is your take on that?
See, I would quickly respond. I had a very interesting situation where we initiated a program for children, for teaching maths for Kerala. It was called a program called Manjadi. In our advertisement, what we had given is that we would also include, those who have capability in arts, in theater, also to look at how maths can be taught to children. So we had said that, we would look at people from all disciplines. We would have MSW. It's not only for mathematics, masters or things like that, but we would have students from various interdisciplinary background, but who have the capability for interacting with children and who are in a position to enthuse the children to ask the right questions and to look at the appropriate skills of contextual problem solving. And that is what we did based on, we had used the Frudendal Institute from Netherlands, which had the capability of realist maths education. And also the Vygotskian social constructivist pedagogy was the sort of framework within which we tried out that. And it's a very interesting experiment which initiated in 5 schools, later expanded to 100 schools, and we are going to roll it out in the entire school system in Kerala. Of course, as Tony was said, the teachers were resistant to change. Unfortunately, most of the teachers found that, we cannot adopt this sort of a practice, was the sort of approach. So it's a question of a dialogue with the teacher, but you cannot devise a mechanism whereby you say that Byju's will take over and resolve your problem. Byju's is not going to resolve your problem. The teachers, we have to keep the teachers at the center and to solve the problem. So you have to have a dialogue with the teachers. What is wrong with their approach and how a different approach could be worked out is what is required, and we are trying to do that.
Well, I was going to add that to be an agent of change, the teacher needs a lot of knowledge. So knowledge is very important because it's about crossing also the different fields and connecting fields of knowledge.
So thank you everybody. Thank you, Professor Largo. Thank you, Professor Castro. Thank you, Dr. Unnikrishnan. Thank you.